Welcome, pudding people, to another episode of Everybody Loves Pudding. I am your host, Ken Seymour. Today, I have actress and producer Gloria Mann here to grace us with some very interesting new movie news. I love new movie news, especially after a period where we haven't had any stuff for a little while, and I'm ready for it. So, how are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Fantastic. I would say
Great.
couldn't be better, but you have to leave room to grow.
Just a little. It's always leaving room for growth.
Absolutely. Well, before we get too much into the nitty gritty of your new film Airbnb, I would like to know a little more of what it is that has created your process and how you got started. Uh, when did the acting bug bite you to begin with?
Well, I grew up with two amazing women in my life. My mother, Yonka Mann, who was an actress in Florida, and her best friend, Veronica Lake, who was my Aunt Connie, essentially. She came and lived with us for about 10 years on and off when I was growing up. And the day she came, my mother said, this is, and before she could even say her name, she put out her hand and she said, call me Aunt Connie. And so from that day on, I called her Aunt Connie and got to watch most of her movies with her as she explained films of that era. And it was just a front row seat to movies and that era, the golden era of Hollywood and Paramount, because she was on in most of those films for Paramount. And it was incredible. And usually it was just she and I.
That
So,
that's pretty amazing. Did she ever just bust out something while you're watching that film? It's like, I remember when we were doing this thing.
oh, absolutely, especially on I Married a Witch because she played uh, tricks on Frederick March. He had to carry her, and she put like weights, put weights on her so that he would
Oh man.
right before shooting. So that was actually her very favorite film that she ever did. She loved it because she used to think of herself as rather witchy and she had a wicked sense of humor.
That's always the best.
Yeah.
So did she like guide you? It's like, okay, if you got the interest, it's like, oh well, if you're going to do this, here's the road you need to travel. What advice did she give you to just kind of put you on the right path?
She called me Glow. That's what her name for me was. And she would say, Glow. She would just turn to me every so often. She'd say, Glow, just don't ever forget who you are. And don't ever be afraid to be who you are or speak up. She spoke up a lot, and people, gave her a bad reputation because of it. She didn't put up with a lot. And looking the way that she did, I mean, I don't know if I could have handled looking like that. Being born, I mean, I think I'm not saying this because she was my Aunt Connie, but um, I think she's one of the great beauties, and I think she was a brilliant actress as well.
Well, I always like to look at it this way. Joan Jett had a bad reputation and people loved her for it.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite Veronica Lake movie?
It's hard to say. I have quite a number that I've enjoyed over the years, but I probably couldn't point to a specific one. The whole era just has a sheen to it
Yes, it
that you don't get.
does.
I mean, yeah, in a way it was they were still, I don't know if I want to say finding footing, but changing the way that the medium was being conveyed to the public and starting the first bits and pieces that you started seeing crop up in multiple films, as the shorthand of film that you get, that you start to learn. It's like, oh, that goes all the way back to a lot of those
Yeah,
films.
you're absolutely right. And a lot of, she was in a lot of the noirs and a lot of women-led noirs, like Barbara Stanwyck. And it was groundbreaking what she did, truly.
So did you go straight into like an acting school? I know every person's journey is different. I've talked to so many people that, I went to modeling first, or I had no interest in acting, but I thought I'd give it a try. Did you just go so it's like, I know this is the direction I want to go?
I knew. I knew in high school. I was the vice president of the Thespians in high school. Um, so I knew in high school, and my dream was to go to New York, but I wound up getting married and having a child. So we decided when my daughter was still a baby to moved to Los Angeles. I mean, to move to San Diego. I'm sorry. We moved to Los Angeles after San Diego. We moved to San Diego, and I went to UC San Diego as an undergraduate, and then got accepted into their graduate acting program. And that was my trajectory. I wanted to get trained, and I wanted to be a classically trained actor. Took myself very seriously and
Well,
my training.
so
And then when I went to and then I moved to Los Angeles right after graduation, got a job um, in a play, and then I auditioned for a brand new. This is interesting, brand new play, a little play that was they had equity. They have equity waiver in Los Angeles, so. Which means that it has to be less than 99 seats. And if you're an equity union member, you can still do them. Well, I got this play, and I was the only woman in it, and there was a wonderful man named Mark Ruffalo who was in it was called Avenue A, and it wound up being his first play.
that's got to be a kind of a special memory. What
Totally memory, totally great
what do you
memory.
remember? Okay, you're in the play and you're acting opposite Mr. Ruffalo. What do you remember most about his performance or his scenes with you? What is the thing that you kind of keep in your mind from that?
He had even then, and he was studying with Stella Adler then at the time. Incredible presence, honesty, integrity. And so when I looked in his eyes on stage, he was always present. We would always just get on this train and just ride this train when we did the play every night. Never knew where it was going to go, and it was exciting.
That always is. It reminds me of a question that I ask a lot of people that have done both theater and television and film, and I mean, obviously they each have their allure, but what about theater do you like that makes it its own special thing to you? I mean, I know everybody's got a preference, and nobody wants to go. I would prefer to do all theater, but what about theater is the thing that you like that makes it its own personality apart from doing everything else?
Well, it always feels like you're walking a tightrope without a net. And then I always feel that when that's happening, that I'm on the right track. And a lot of people don't like that. I like it. I like the not knowing element every single night. Sometimes when you have to shoot someone, a gun doesn't go off, and then you have to figure out. And if part of the storytelling of the play is someone's supposed to die, what do you do? Well, for instance, in I did a play called The Tooth of Crime at the San Diego Repertory Theater, and that actually happened. The gun didn't go off, so somebody grabbed a knife and stabbed himself to death. And he was where he was supposed to shoot himself. And those moments are especially fun because you have to stop yourself from laughing, because you're watching an actor basically save his own life, but there's something so hysterical about it because you know what's happening, and you're grateful that they got themselves out of it and finished the story, but there's something incredibly funny about it too.
Yeah, but there's
And
also,
you can't laugh, but
well, you should.
well, you shouldn't, right? You have to, turn around and
Do your best. It's crying. It's not laughter. See,
No, right, exactly. There used to be, I had a teacher, and I had Eric Christmas, who was my Shakespeare teacher at UC San Diego, and he said, laughing is like this, you go, and then he would say, and crying is like this, and it was your body was doing the same. He was doing the same thing to show us how similar. It was very funny. He was a very funny actor. Did a lot of work.
I always enjoyed the immediate response. That was the thing
Hmm.
that I liked, getting that crowd reaction. If you do a scene that's supposed incredibly striking or surprising, and getting that little gasp from 100 200 people at a time, that's kind of a different feeling than I would expect doing a take over and over and over again, but you get to get it exactly right when you do it that way.
Yes, and they get to be part of the experience, don't they?
Mm.
The theater experience, which is also very exciting to me. I grew up in the theater, and I love it. I love doing Shakespeare. You know, I love that. So
A lot of theaters have their own personalities too. Was there a specific theater that you were most fond of?
I love the Mark Taper Forum in Los Angeles. I worked there a lot. Um, I love the La Jolla Playhouse. And there was an old theater where I did a Sam Shepard play in New Mexico. Uh, this old theater in Albuquerque, New Mexico, that actually had totem poles, totems on the wall. It
Oh,
was just a magnificent old theater.
that's
So
awesome.
that was a special.
For those of our listeners that have had zero theater experience, that have only consumed it from the audience, what is something that when you got into doing theater that you did not expect would be part of the process of getting things ready, that's kind of a behind the scenes things that most people wouldn't think that you would have to do?
You mean in terms of preparation?
Mhm.
To get to literally go on stage?
Mhm.
Well, I do a lot of preparation. I do yoga, I meditate, I have a very strict dietary regime. If I have a performance day, I really have to, it's almost like before I go on stage, I have to kind of, okay, check, 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 make sure everything's running. It really is to me like I've got a, an engine going, and everything has to check out because this is our instrument. It's almost, I guess it would be similar to someone who, is a member of an orchestra. And especially if they're a trumpet player or a tuba player or something, and you have to do vocal, exercises to make sure that you have muscularity. You have to do vocal exercises so that your tongue works properly, so that your diction reaches the back of the house, and you don't want to. Everything has to be in running order, so to speak.
Must must articulate.
Must articulate, as Hamlet says, "Speak the speech I pray you, as I pronounced it to you, trippingly off the tongue."
Oh, that's always good stuff. But you develop multiple skills. All actors do, and trying to
Oh yeah.
come up with as much as they can to bring to the parts that they're going to do. But one of the things that I saw that uh, you're proficient in is, as you were talking about, vocalizing, singing, uh,
Yes.
jazz, and was it blues?
Yes, blues. I sang a lot at the House of Blues in Los Angeles. Got to sing with some pretty amazing people. I did a blues trip by myself, um, it through Mississippi and Memphis, and just went to like the deepest, darkest blues places where there was just literally dirt on the floor. It was some woman's house, and she was cooking, and then there'd be an amazing piano player. I mean, because I wanted to see, I sang that music a lot, and I said, I have to go where this music was born. I want to see where it was, where it came from. So that was a life-changing experience. I got to meet Coco Taylor
Oh,
and her band, got to sing with them. And it's just the people that when you travel alone, a woman traveling alone, you know, you really, it's great because you're open to all of these experiences, and people are very, they all want to be hospitable and take care. So I just had the most wonderful time doing that, going through the South.
did you ever get starstruck, get a chance to perform with somebody that just either just truly amazed you in the process or that you were already aware of? It's like, I cannot wait for this.
Coco Taylor was one of those. There was somebody at the House of Blues. Oh my gosh, I can't remember. There were all these different blues bands that would come in through to the House of Blues, and I would get to join them because I didn't have my own band. So I would get to sing with them for the night, and that was amazing. And I can't even remember off the top of my head now, but Coco Taylor and her band was one of those bands.
Well, maybe we flip it around. Let's say you were still in the process of doing this tour. If you could dream up any jazz or blues artist that you could perform with, who would it be?
John Lee Hooker.
Uh,
I saw John Lee Hooker and Morrison on the streets in New Orleans, and it was incredible. Etta James, um, uh, it's just so many great artists.
yeah, I know a friend of mine was trying to criticize John Lee Hooker once. I just asked him how. How?
Yeah, Albert King. I saw him when I was on that trip. He just stayed in a car all night and he had the door open. He was drinking out in the back seat of his car, and he just pulled up and just was listening.
Uh,
Like had the car open so he could listen. BB King,
oh, yeah,
got to see him. Hmm.
so much fun. But that's not the only set of skills that I saw you had, and I had to ask about a couple of these as well. Um, Stage combat. So,
Yes.
when we talk stage combat, are we talking about the rapier, or were you fully conversant in all of the wooden and metal implements of destruction?
Well, the rapier and of course sword fighting, but I actually expanded my repertoire doing Airbnb because the part called for her to be a real enthusiast, a fitness enthusiast, but basically kickboxing. And there are several fight scenes that I actually had to do. We had an incredible fight choreographer named Scott Blackwood that came out from Los Angeles to choreograph our fight scenes. And so I trained for 2 months for 5 hours a day, every day, to prepare myself to play Jennifer in Airbnb. So it's gone into kickboxing and actual fighting,
Now,
which is,
are we talking about American kickboxing, or are we talking about Muay Thai?
no, we're talking about American
Oh,
kickboxing.
I was
Yes.
going to say that would be a very different presentation because I can see you get those arms up like this and just get the
Yes.
going.
Yes. So, but it really, it informed my character having that skill. So
Now, did you also get to use your poker dealing skills?
that I didn't do in this one, no. But that got me through undergraduate school, helped me pay for my education in
Oh,
San Diego. I dealt cards in San Diego as an undergrad when I was an undergraduate.
oh, I bet you have some stories from that.
Oh my gosh, I don't know if we could tell those publicly.
What? Well, give me one. Give me one crazy thing that happened while you were dealing cards at the casino.
Okay, so I was dealing. It was a big pot. Some of the boys, if you get my drift, they usually spend time in Las Vegas when I say the boys, I mean as in Goodfellas,
Yeah.
those boys. They
Okay.
were sitting. They must have been in town for something, and they were sitting at the table. And this was a big game, and there was a lot of money in there. And it got down to these two guys, and one of them lost. And the guy just took a rack of chips and just hurled it at me and hit me in the shoulder, knocked me off my dealer's chair. But then I was under the table, I fell, and they're all, Gloria, Gloria, are you all right? And I'm looking and I'm seeing, oh my God, these are $100 chips. So I start putting them in my pocket, grabbing these $100. I
Before
thought,
people get
okay,
them.
go ahead, throw money at me. And then he walked out. He just
Oh
threw
man.
these chips and then walked out.
And you
So
never saw him again.
I did see him again, but
Oh, oh, come on. That's a perfect ending to that story.
but you know what? I made a lot of extra money that night. Let's put it that way.
Oh man. The things we do to get to the places that we need to go.
That's right.
So, okay. So before we get to talking a little bit about Airbnb specifically, I want to talk about the thing that got in the way of Airbnb, and that was the SAG-AFTRA strike. I love to get opinions from people that are in the industry, and well, maybe opinions is the wrong word, but just the experience, the life experience of what it was to have to deal with this in the process of trying to get your stuff out there and make it happen. What was that like?
Well, it was incredibly frustrating and somewhat heartbreaking. And prior to the strike, I must go back a bit because we shot this thing during COVID. So that we had to postpone our shooting schedule for a year because of COVID. And then we couldn't postpone anymore. COVID was still happening, and we decided to up our budget and just keep everyone on set basically in a bubble and feed them incredibly delicious meals, which I prepared. I'm also a chef. So, and that's another story. But uh, that was one hurdle for this, and it created a lot of challenges. One of our ADs couldn't come out. Our AD couldn't come out because there was illness and because of COVID, and so people had to wear a few different hats for a couple weeks. Um, Jumping to our release date, which was October 3rd, that happened, of course, as you just said, during the strike, and we couldn't talk about it. We couldn't, and as an independent, we got distribution. We had the premiere, as I said, in February. We all of our papers and deals were done, but we couldn't name the platforms. We couldn't. I couldn't. I've turned down about 20 interviews. Um, that was you couldn't talk about it. It was like, oh my gosh, we did this. It just felt like you were left at the starting gate, and the train had and that the race had started, and you were left behind. It was a scary feeling because as a producer, I realized the importance of making sure that our investors get their money back. So we all started to say, okay, well, it won't be too long, and we had to obey the strike. I wasn't going to not obey the strike. It was an important strike. So I'm grateful that it got, taken care of before January because it now I think that since it just happened in October, we've been able to kind of make up for a little bit, but that was incredibly difficult. I couldn't go to any film festivals, nothing, couldn't, and I'm not the only one. A lot of filmmakers couldn't do that. But I think it's especially heartbreaking for an indie filmmaker because we rely so much on ourselves to do a lot of the legwork. So we don't have a big studio backing us or doing our publicity for us. So it was challenging, definitely challenging.
So, and that's kind of also something I was curious about because again, as a consumer, on this side of the divide where we just get to see the finished product, and occasionally we get to see news stories about the things that happen, and it's going to paint everything in a very specific color. So we often see, in especially in the SAG-AFTRA thing, that these large studios just making it so difficult for the individual writers and actors to be able to make the living they need to make. But my question is, as a producer trying to get money, you're not dealing with the people that are being labeled the villains here in this. You're dealing with I mean, you're dealing with people that are getting the funds that you need to make the film, but I have to imagine that it's a slightly different animal, that it's maybe not what people expect that it is. What is it like to try and get the funding to put a project like this out?
Well, it's difficult. I mean, especially when you don't always have gigantic recognizable names. I'm talking gigantic, like Margot Robbie, or Denzel Washington, or Viola Davis. Um, so that's challenging because they immediately say their first question is, "Who's in it?" So we have to have some track record uh, within the context of our filmmaking skills. I was in it, so that was something. You just try to use as much leverage as you possibly can because we also, this was not a huge budgeted film, so uh, there's a lot to consider. But when they read the script and they like the script, that's hopefully when they'll jump on board if any of those other boxes are not being checked for them. So if people know my work and they like the role that I'm going to be playing, then they're inclined to give money. If they like the script and they want to be a part of that storytelling, this particular film has some nice storylines for women, all three of the women in it. So that was something. Um, and so that's it's always challenging, but not impossible. Like I said, um, there's something that appeals to someone that wants to help make a film get made.
I have to assume that some of it too is on the production side. You start to establish relationships
Oh,
with people you've
absolutely.
worked with. They trust you. They know
Yes.
that you're not going to bring them something that is just not good.
Right. And our my brother, writer director Robert Mann, has a great track record, and he has a lot of integrity. The company that he founded, Manatee Films, which helped to produce this, Airbnb, has a good track record, and we give our investors back their money, and that's the bottom line. I mean, and so that's important.
Oh yeah.
And so they'll give you money again if you do that and continue to have integrity around the work and know that you're going to be putting out a quality project and the actors are going to be great. And we had, especially on this, just an exceptional team. Les Goldman was one of our main producers. Dan Harris, just really just a solid support team as a producing team. And when you start there, you can really go far, and you can get a quality cast and get then the rest of the crew just kind of falls into place because then they want to work with you and they want to be a part of it. So
Casting is key. That's I've talked with my co-host about that. We in our movie reviews where we overly analyze things to the point of ridiculousness. Uh, to me, that the writing is good, but the casting, if you don't have the right group, it doesn't matter what you've got. It's just gonna fall.
why do we go to see a movie? We
Yeah.
go to see Denzel, or we go to see, Octavia Spencer, or, I mean, or
Well,
Frances McDormand, you know.
maybe the name that brings us in, but to me, it's all about the embodiment. If I can't feel that connection, that chemistry between the people that are trying to bring the story to life,
Right.
it's just kind of, well, uh,
That's true.
yeah,
And like you said, certain you get a track records and people know your work.
yeah.
And so I'm grateful that people want to see my work. So as soon as something drops, there are people that, you know, so that feels good. And uh, I'm grateful that I mean, I really do try to do my best work at all times on every level. So I'm not going to ask someone to be a part of something that I don't feel I'm bringing my highest quality and my A game to. So,
All right, one final question related to the strike specifically before we get into the meat of the film itself. Now that the dust has basically settled and the things are looking like they're going back basically to normal, do you think that the agreements that were pinned down were favorable? Were they what is it what was needed, or is it good enough for now?
that's a tough question. And I think depending on who you ask in the industry, actors, you'll get different responses. Um, I was grateful that we came to the agreement because we needed to get to back to work.
Right.
Um, and that's a reality. People need to pay their mortgages and they need to work. So for now, I'll go out on a limb and I'll say, for now. I mean, I believe that can always change,
Right.
but um, that was a necessary strike for what was at stake. There was a lot at stake, and I applaud the leadership for how they handled it. Everybody, all of us that, you know, walked the lines, and it was not easy to do that and to wake up every morning and get these emails from SAG. This is where the strike places are today, and this is where you get your swag. And I was wearing my strike hat every single day, and people would say, "Oh, I like that. I like your hat," and I'd say, "Yeah, I wish I didn't have to wear it." I mean, it's so strange. What the reality was. Yeah, the swag looks really cool, you know, it's SAG, black and yellow swag, but the reality is that we were out of work and we couldn't promote. And so to answer your question, I will say that I'm glad it's over and I'm glad they were able to reach the agreement that they reached because I know that that was not easy. So
Yeah.
I think there was a miraculous, I don't use that word lightly, but there was a miraculous element to it if you get my
I know exactly where
meaning.
you're coming from. That's
Yes.
about it's like, do you like my new hat? It is both stylish and inconvenient.
Yes.
Oh, well, tell me about Airbnb. I'm getting suspense thriller vibes. I'm getting a little bit of not last girl standing sort of thing, but you know, that kind of fight for your life impression. Tell me a little bit about the film.
Well, Airbnb is a film about a wealthy couple. Ryan Davies is my brother. I'm his older, overprotective sister. He's married to a younger woman named Mia, and they decide to go for to celebrate their first wedding anniversary to upstate to an Airbnb. And they stop at my house on the way because he's just gotten out of the hospital due to an ulcer. He's a very type A, overworks, you know, makes a lot of money. And so at the beginning of the film, he stops at my house and I'm giving him supplements and saying, make sure you take this and make sure you call me. And, you know, and it's obvious that I'm not a fan of that new young wife. There's that. That's established,
Finger
right?
wagging. All right.
Exactly. A bit of finger wagging. And More finger wagging occurs later on, um, in a scene between he and I. But um, then they get to the place, and the couple that owns and operates it uh, are quite unusual. Uh, you know that you realize they're being just a little too friendly, a little too friendly, wanting to interact with them a little too much. And so there's that piece of it. Then you just see these other two characters that go in and weave in and out. And there's a voyeuristic sort of feel to it. And that kind of indicates something that's going to be happening later on. I don't want to give too much
No,
away,
no, no.
but it definitely is a psychological thriller. Has a little feel like Get Out. Um, it drops those psychological Hitchcockian breadcrumbs along the way, which I always love to have. Sort of a North by Northwest
No,
vibe.
no psycho vibes in this one.
There's a bit of a psycho vibe in there, a little bit. Um, slight. There's a little shower scene. Yeah. But so then as the film progresses, um, they get themselves in. You realize that they're in quite a bad situation, and then um, I can't get a hold of my brothers, and so that makes me suspicious. So I go looking for him,
Charged with
and
rescue.
kind of like that.
I like it. I like it. So
A little, yes.
what is it about suspense that appeals to you in telling a story? Where does that hit your need as a storyteller?
I love psychological thrillers. I loved Hitchcock, especially. I loved Get Out.
Mhm.
Um, I just feel they're usually quite smart in their storytelling, and I love the dropping of the breadcrumbs to follow a story because I find it very satisfying and kind of scary at the same time, and sometimes exciting. Can be very exciting, and especially when the storyline has women uh, telling these stories. That appeals to me, of course. My character has a wonderful arc, um, and they in this particular story, women get to do things that a lot of times they're not allowed to do.
Well,
So that's appealing in the storytelling.
takes a non-traditional approach
A
to
bit.
the roles that are played because you
Yes.
always
Yeah,
still have to have those roles filled, but who fills them can change and how they fill them, right?
exactly. You have to kind of think Linda Hamilton
Right.
for my character. I've had a couple people say, that they equate that character with the character that I play in this. So, um,
That's a good
but yeah, that's not bad, right? Yeah.
right. So, okay, well, if you had to, I know this is slightly off, just a smidge off topic, talking about liking the thriller kind of film. If you had to pick your top three thriller films, what would they be?
Well, I love North by Northwest, Get Out, and I know this sounds. I really love the older ones. I would say I loved Hitchcock, so I would have to say The Birds.
Ah, yeah, that's classic.
Yeah.
Yeah, for Hitchcock, I was always a big rear view window kind of
Ah,
fan, but got and it kind of made me this film specifically made me think of that at least in terms of
I
flavor.
can I can see that.
just trying to. We were talking about the nature of the bad guys in this, the voyeuristic side. Well,
Yes.
having that flipped onto the viewer where you are in that position is always kind of an uncomfortable proposition to do.
Yes,
It's
it
necessary.
is. It is. And I can say this without giving too much away. Um, they realize after they've been there a bit that they're being videotaped.
Mm.
So
As long as it's Betamax, I
there's
mean, that's the
they're
the
being there's cameras on them,
yeah.
and a lot of I've talked to a lot of people recently that say that that's their work. They don't stay in B&Bs because of that exact thing. They think there's cameras
There's
watching them.
always a fear of that. It's like, why is
Yes.
that doll pointed directly at the bed? Get it away.
Yeah.
Uh, okay. So if you are if you are the kind of, overbearing, well, not overbearing, where'd that come from?
Overprotective.
Overprotective,
Yes.
big sister. Um, what, who is the protagonist of the film? Who would you say
Uh,
is the key?
well, my brother is the protagonist, Ryan Davies,
Mhm.
played by Ryan Thomas, and so and then his wife, Mia Davies, played by Brianna McQueenie. Um, so, and then what? And then, of course, the two the Alex Gaelic and Savannah Witten, who were um, the B&B owners. They have their own sub story,
Yeah.
which is the reason that what happens to the couple happens to them because of their storyline. And it's actually the like I said, it's three women that really these worlds collide and their stories collide.
In the process of filming, since you got the training in the kickboxing, did you get to really lay into any stuntmen in the process of filming?
No,
Oh,
no. The only thing that someone got to lay into me is that Savannah and I had to do this one particular scene. It's really a pivotal scene, and it was dangerous. And she had to literally jump on my back about 40 times.
uh,
Jump, literally leap onto it. So that was challenging. But like I said, we had Scott Blackwood, who was just an incredible fight choreographer. And he made sure we were all safe. I mean, that's really the number one issue on set. You have to feel safe at all times. So, and those fight scenes were, they were real fight scenes. So,
that's a lot of fun.
yes.
Okay, final question about the film specifically that I've got for you. What is your favorite memory of putting the film together?
Oh, wow. Of shooting on set, you mean?
Mhm.
Um, I would say that it was the fight scene, and especially when I come back. I shouldn't say that, but
We know
they'll know when I see it when they see it. When I come back and I basically just beat the living
it.
out of Kylo, the guy who owns the B&B, to get in because I think he's got my brother there and he's lied and I feel like he's lied about it. So that was so satisfying and it felt great to be able to actually follow through and do this fight with him.
Absolutely. All right. So we always have a couple of palate cleanser questions at the end of the interview, just kind of personality boosters, at least happiness boosters for me anyway. Um, so let's start with we have a food named podcast for a reason. We love food. Food brings people together. So, and you said
I'm off for that.
you're a chef too, on top of
Yes.
this. So
Yes.
we ask about the food that most people love that brings everybody together, but yet still somehow divides us, pizza. Are you a pizza person? And if so,
Ab-
what kind?
Absolutely. I am like straight up margarita. Um, you know, that's my favorite. Just a simple margarita with a little basil.
Now, do you prefer homemade, or is there places that you always go to? It's like they make the best pies. I got to go there.
Well, I live in Rhinebeck, and there is one particular place that they are to me, they are the best. I grew up in an Italian restaurant. My father owned restaurants, and so my first job when I was probably 11 was making pizzas in his restaurant. So I I take my pizza very seriously.
Give them a shout out. Who is it?
Oh, it's Il Posto.
Oh, fantastic. Love it. All right. And we also talked a little about your singing earlier. Are
Yes.
you primarily interested in that, or are you do you like all sorts of music? Who are your favorite musical influences?
Oh gosh, I love, well, from the time I started singing, Billie Holiday was probably, Sarah Vaughan, Dinah Washington, Etta James, Ella Fitzgerald. Those are my
Those
those are my top.
Now, I'm sure you've been told that you share the name with a somewhat famous pop singer from a while back by the same name, Gloria Mann, right?
Oh yes, I heard that. I've never heard her though.
Yeah,
But yes, do you know who she is?
yeah, she well, in terms of, notoriety, it's, you got the high levels, like not quite that high. She did some covers, didn't hit the, I think she hit number 9 on the top 100 or something like that was the highest she ever got. But still, it's kind of fun to share a certain
It,
aspect.
it is, yes.
It's always good. All right, so last one. I don't know if you're aware, being that, it's kind of everywhere now, but we talk a lot about comics and the intersection of comics with film and movies and things like that. Are you by chance a comic book fan at all?
The only comic book I really obsessively love is Batman.
Ah, good choice.
Always have from the time I was a child. I go to see all the Batman films. Um,
So if you had the chance to play any character from Batman or any other comic, who would you choose?
well, Catwoman would be fun.
Now, are we talking about Eartha Kitt Catwoman? Are we talking about Michelle Pfeiffer Catwoman? Are we talking about some other iteration?
I would do Gloria Mann Catwoman.
Right. Yes. That's the correct answer. I love it. Well, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. If our listeners want to keep, up on the newest things that you're doing at any given time on social media, what is the best way for them to be able to see where you're going and what you're doing?
I'm on Instagram at GloriaMan22. I'm also on X, aka Twitter,
Twitter, yeah.
at GloriaMan22. I have a public Facebook page,
Mhm.
and I have a website, GloriaMan.com. So,
Wonderful.
and
Wonderful.
I also my IMDb page
Well,
is,
yes. I mean, that's
yes,
where you got to go to see what's up and coming, where we can see
that's right.
somewhat accurate information usually.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so fun.
It has been great. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. And happy holidays.
Right back at you.
Thank you.